So California thought it would be super cool to tax a constitutional right. Now here's how you can avoid it. Now firstly, reloading components and tools are not currently subject to the 11% tax on ammunition. So if you want to get into reloading your own ammunition, go right ahead. Personally, I barely have any time to go shooting and make these videos, so that's not in the cards. So let's get into my favorite solution, the C&R FFL combined with the Certificate of Eligibility from the Department of Justice. This method's not new, and people have been using it for a while now to mail order ammunition just straight to their house. But with the 11% tax on ammo, it is more relevant as of late because ammunition got a lot more expensive. As of right now, in 2026, this method works, but it also isn't exactly free. Depending on how much you shoot in a year, it may or may not be worth it to you. However, if you hate the idea of effectively giving California money to trample our Second Amendment rights with every single ammunition purchase, you may still want to follow along. So as we all know, an FFL in the state of California is currently the only entity that can receive mail-ordered ammunition purchases, well, other than law enforcement. And as ammo is usually cheaper in bulk, most of us who shoot a lot always used to mail order ammunition by the case. There was a brief moment in 2024 when we could relive how convenient this was for about a week, of no 11% tax and shipping ammo straight to our houses. Then California managed to get that all shut down again. In general, FFLs charge to receive your ammunition, usually 10 to 20 bucks per case of ammo you're shipping to them. And that's on top of the background check fee, the 11% ammo tax on top of that. It gets pretty expensive. Couple that with relatively few large bulk ammo vendors in California, and we're pretty starved for reasonably priced ammunition depending on where you live. The solution is to get yourself a Curio and Relic FFL from the ATF and a Certificate of Eligibility from the California Department of Justice. With that, you're the one receiving the ammunition, and there is no point for California to collect its 11% extra. Now, I know this sounds intimidating. Government nonsense always makes my head spin, but I promise it's not that big of a deal to get it done. Anyway, let's start with getting a Type 3 C&R FFL from the ATF. So where do you apply? First, you go to the ATF website and download Form 7/7CR Application for Federal Firearms License. I put the link in the description. The FFL application form looks intimidating, but just make sure you read it completely and it tells you the parts you don't need to fill out when you're applying for just a C&R FFL. As of the recording of this episode, there is no e-form available. Now, the Type 3 collector's licenses do not require photographs or fingerprint cards, unlike other FFL types. You'll take that first completed copy with payment and mail that to the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. The address is in the form. The second copy you have to mail to your chief law enforcement officer of your locality. This is just a notification. They don't have to sign off on anything. The fee to the ATF is $30 and the FFL is good for 3 years. And there's no on-site inspection required, unlike for other FFL types, so no one's coming to your house. You'll get your license after passing the electronic background check. Also, again, make sure you read the form in its entirety to make sure you aren't filling out more than you need to. Again, you don't need to submit photographs or fingerprint cards. Now for your renewal, you should receive that renewal form from the ATF 90 days before the expiration of your FFL, or ask for it if it doesn't show up. You'll also need to fill out a Form 8, which includes questions about how many firearms you've acquired or disposed of using the license over the past 3 years. Since we're just using this for ammo, it won't be hard. The C&R for guns in California is a little useless, but it has a few perks. I'll make a video about it if you guys are interested, so let me know. Anyway, then you're going to make a completed copy of that Form 8 for your chief law enforcement officer. You'll send that first set again off to the ATF and mail copy 2 off to your chief law enforcement officer. Again, just a notification. They don't have to do anything. They can't tell you no even. Now, for the extra fun part, the California COE requirement. First, you need to set up an account on the CFARS system. And then secondly, before filling out your COE request, you need to submit your fingerprints via a live scan. This is pretty straightforward, and you just need to find a local notary or live scan provider who can take care of it. I'll provide a link to the form you need to give to the live scan provider down in the description. You can also find it on the oag.ca.gov website. In fact, the page on applying for the Certificate of Eligibility is shockingly helpful. Now that you've done that, you can apply online through the CFAR system for your COE. The initial COE application process just includes a firearms eligibility criminal background check. And your filing costs at this point with the fingerprints will probably be $70 to $100, depending on how much it costs for the live scan service that you used. This certificate is going to be valid for 1 year and must be renewed annually in California. Currently, the renewal fees are $22. So after the initial setup, if you order a case of ammo once a year, this still basically pays for itself since you're not paying the tax. Now, when filling out the paperwork, the DOJ will probably ask for your FFL number. Now, this is entirely up to you and not legal advice, but I don't believe they have any statutory authority to do this. If you politely ask them to provide a legal citation, and maybe tell them where to shove it, for what I've heard, they'll usually just process your COE. Or you can just give it to them. It's up to you. Now, there is one important distinction. If the ammunition vendor is out of state, if you've got your COE and FFL 03, you can order all the ammunition you want and have it shipped to your house, provided they're, again, willing to deal with California. Now, if the vendor is in California, your COE and FFL 03 does not exempt you from the in-person eligibility checks, which is kind of silly. Now, for renewal, it's thankfully much more straightforward than the C&R FFL, especially since we have to do this one yearly. You just log into the CFAR system, navigate to your COE and select renewal, confirm your information, and pay the $22 by credit card. Done. No new fingerprints or any additional paperwork, so it's probably worth keeping up on since that's cheap. They should send you a reminder about this 60 days before your expiration date, and 60 days prior to your expiration date is the earliest you can submit for your renewal. I'd recommend not dragging your heels doing this since they can take a while to process the paperwork and you don't want to have to go through that initial setup again. Well, there it is. And once you have your paperwork in hand, most of the big vendors have a way for you to send it or upload it to them so that you can receive your ammo directly through the mail. And since you're the FFL receiving the ammo, in this case, there's no mechanism for California to collect that pesky 11% tax. I've also found that lots of vendors who don't necessarily say that they ship to California will deal with California still. They just request your paperwork through email. But do make sure the vendor doesn't say they won't ship to California because, sometimes they charge a restocking fee. I'm never super thrilled when someone won't ship a legal product to California, but I respect their aversion to risk as a small business. So, other than getting into reloading your own ammunition, the FFL 03 and COE exemption is probably the easiest way to get bulk ammo at a sane price in California. Now, this also depends on your rate of ammo usage. If you're the kind of person that just puts a box of rounds through your carry gun once a month, you probably aren't going to save that much money compared to just shipping a single case of 9mm to your local FFL and then paying the tax, background check fee, and whatever their ammo transfer fee is. But if you're like me and shoot a lot, competitions, training, the savings are pretty significant. And not only that, but sometimes it's kind of hard to find specific ammunition you may need. And being able to just order a small batch of something weird is really convenient, compared to having to go to your FFL and go through all the hassle to get a couple of boxes of .455 Webley for Grandpa's World War II bringback that you decided to shoot on a whim. I can just about guarantee you won't find that on the shelf at Sportsman's Warehouse. Anyway, thanks for listening. If you found what I said helpful, don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Let me know in the comments if you plan to get your C&R and COE, or if you've already done it and what vendors you found who will work with California. My favorite is usually Target Sports. Anyway, I've been the 2A Tactical Dad, and as I like to say, we could all be a little more free and a lot more self-reliant. All it takes is a little responsibility. Also, the whole ammo background check thing is ridiculous. If criminals already bypass the background check to acquire a firearm, it's not exactly a wild stretch of the imagination to realize they'll find a way to get ammo too.